In this video, we're going to talk about why cryptocurrencies are of benefit. A lot of times the public discussion nowadays is all about the price, right? People making money, losing money. But very few people are talking about what the benefit to society cryptocurrencies are giving, okay? What's the value add? Why do we want these things? Why are they significant? So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Now, if somebody asks you, well, what's the benefit of cryptocurrencies? You could give some short answers. You could say things like, well, you can send money anywhere in the world as easy as an email. Okay, as long as a person has access to a smartphone, press a button, open an account, they could be in the middle of nowhere, and as long as they have internet connection, you could send them money, and boom, it's done, okay? That's very cool. It's not something you could easily do in today's world. And so it allows for truly global commerce. Another answer you could say is, well, you can store your own money. So you have full control over your own money. Instead of trusting a bank to handle your money so that you can participate in digital payments, you could actually store your own money. Okay, so you have a private key that you can keep to yourself. If you want, you could inscribe it or part of it inside, a ring, on the inside of a ring, wear the ring around, and you could store as much money as you want on that. You could store $1 billion, $10 billion. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. It's probably not very safe. But you can do it, okay? You now have control over your own money. So these are small features, though. I mean, they're important, but they're small features, and we're missing the big picture, okay? So in this video, what I want to do is zoom out and look at the big picture. What is the benefit to society of cryptocurrencies? What's the value add? What are they doing for us? Now, in order to understand that, we first have to understand what the value add of currency is. Okay, what does currency allow us to do? Because cryptocurrencies are just the next evolution of that. It's the next generation of a long legacy of currency in general. So we first have to understand that foundation, that basis of what currency is allowing us to do. And then we'll be able to see what cryptocurrencies are allowing us to do. Okay, so what is a currency anyways? My definition of a currency is that it is a tool that we have invented to ease the flow of commerce. And in doing so, it allows us to generate more wealth as a society. Okay, it's like, whoa, that's a lot of words. What do you mean? Okay, well, let's go ahead and draw some pictures here. So another definition of currency that you hear a lot is that it is a medium of exchange. So we're going to start here with the most basic form of exchange, which would be barter. So we have two people, and like everybody, they have their own unique talents and skill sets. This person happens to be really good at making clay pots. Okay, it's just what they grew up doing. They have so much skill at it, they could just do it in their sleep. Okay, this will be like an ancient times example. Because I don't think, well, of course there are people that make clay pots nowadays, but we're gonna just go with ancient themes example, okay? So this person loves making clay pots. This person, for whatever reason, just grew up around sheep, has a huge connection with the sheep, loves the sheep, and, makes wool. Okay, it's just what they're really good at. They're a shepherd, and they make the most high-quality wool you will ever find. Now, these people could live in isolation with one another, okay, and they could decide, you know what, I'm going to do everything myself. This guy's going to find his own way of making clothing that doesn't have to use wool, and I'm going to, find my own food, and I'm going to do everything myself. Okay, well, he could decide to do that, but he's going to have a very low quality of life because there's only so much time in the day, and he's not going to be able to master making wool and clothing at the same level that this guy does, who is specialized in just making wool. And likewise, this guy, if he decided to do everything himself, he's not going to be able to create pottery at the same quality of this guy, who's just so good at it. It's what he's born to do, let's say. He's just so good at it that he is able to make the highest quality clay pots. So if they, instead of living in isolation, decide to come together and exchange, they both benefit. Okay, this is the point that I want to make, is that through exchange, by this guy giving some of his surplus of clay pots, and trust me, he has a lot because he makes them in his sleep. Okay, he's so good at making clay pots, he has plenty. He's not going to lose anything by giving away one of them. Okay, but he's not just giving it away, because in exchange, he's also getting some wool. So through this exchange and these people coming together, both of their quality of life improves. This guy's quality of life improves and this guy's quality of life improves, because this guy now has wool of a quality and softness and whatever that he would never have before. Okay, because he only has so much time in the day. He's not good at making wool, he's good at making clay pots. And this person's quality of life improves because now they have clay pots at a quality and level that they would never be able to create on their own. Okay, so they both benefit. It's a win-win scenario. And so if you think about it, it's through this process of exchange and through this process of people, getting really good at something and then offering that to the world, that we have been able to generate all of our wealth as a society. If you look at Los Angeles, for example, where did that come from? Okay, if you zoom back just like 200, 300 years, it wasn't even here. Okay, there were some, Native Americans, maybe eventually some small missions, but there was not roads, there was not Hollywood, there was not, these buildings and skyscrapers and cars. None of it was here. Okay, so a lot of times people say or think to themselves that there's some sort of limit to how much wealth there is, and they're fighting over it, and they're saying, well, if that guy has a giant house, then he's super greedy because he's taking away from the starving children in Africa. And that's false. Okay, wealth grows. The more we exchange and the more we set up systems for cooperation and working together, we grow wealth. Okay, we grow wealth. We grow all these buildings. We grow all these services. And so the faster we are able to do this exchange, the more wealth we can grow. Okay? And so this exchange is very important, and to understand that it's a win-win for both parties is also important. Now, of course, there are some scenarios during exchange where it's not a win-win. Okay, if this person sells, some sort of thing that's going to ruin this guy's life and tricks him, then that's not fair, right? But assuming that both people are intelligent and both people are looking out for themselves and both people are doing what's right, then the exchange will be good and both people will benefit. Now, the thing about barter is that it is limited. Okay, it's limited. And the reason why it's limited is because let's say that this person wants some more wool. Well, he's like, dude, I'll give you another clay pot if you give me some more wool. This guy's like, dude, you've asked me 10 times. I don't want another clay pot. He says, okay, but I see you need more wool. Here's the deal. You go over here, and there's this guy who makes salt or collects salt. He probably needs a clay pot. So go ahead, give him a clay pot, and exchange it for some salt, and bring back the salt to me, and I will give you back some wool. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that would have to happen in barter. So this guy would have to do this intermediate step in order to get what he actually wants. Now, this could happen sometimes 2 or 3 layers deep, because maybe this guy doesn't want the clay pot, so he has to go to another person that wants something else, and then blah, 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 right? So barter itself is limited in the amount of exchange that it can accommodate, and therefore the amount of wealth that it can grow. So let's say that this can, support a small village, maybe a group of 100 people or 50 people, maybe even less, okay? But if you want to support New York City or a giant city like Dubai or whatever, you're not going to be able to do barter, okay? Imagine you're in New York and they take away all the currency and they say, you have to do barter now. Okay, and so you go down to the taxi and you're like, oh, I'll give the guy, you give him your watch in order to get to your destination. You're at the supermarket and you need some fruit, and you give the person your shoes, and it would just be a mess, right? And obviously the whole city would crumble on itself because you wouldn't be able to support commerce at that level. And so barter fails. It doesn't scale, okay? And so over time, certain currencies evolved in order to allow commerce to happen at an easier level, okay? Or it happened with more ease. So the way that this happened, at least from my understanding, is that there used to be things like salt, okay, that were really, used by people. And every week when they would go to the market, they would need some more salt, okay, versus a clay pot where, you need one once a year, maybe. And so if you came to the market with salt, because people would put it on their food, they'd use it to preserve food, they would always be running out, and they always needed more. So if you came to the market with salt, you were pretty much guaranteed to get what you want on your first exchange. And so these things sort of became the de facto currency because they gave you an advantage when you would go to the market. Our word salary actually comes from salt, okay? The etymology of that, if you look it up on Google or a dictionary or whatever, salary is from the word salt, okay? It's because we used to use salt as a medium of exchange. You could call it a currency. Okay, and the reason why it's a medium of exchange is because it allows for this exchange to happen at an easier level, right? It's a medium so that you don't have to do a direct exchange using your specialty, which in this person's thing is clay pot, but instead you could get what you want through this. So this allowed for commerce to happen at an even larger scale. So instead of 100 people, you could have a village of 1,000 people, let's say. Okay, and in all different cultures, different things became the currency. In the Mayan civilization, it was cacao beans. In other civilizations, it was, seashells and beads and feathers and all this kind of stuff, right? So everybody had their own way. But in time, certain things like gold and gold coins and silver and stuff like that became, they had more advantages than, let's say, salt, because if you spill water on it, it won't go away. Stuff like this. And so over time, as these currencies evolved, some of them became better than others. Okay? And so what I want to show you is that as the currencies improved, so was the amount of infrastructure that these people can now support. Okay, so let's take, for example, barter. Okay, barter can support a small teepee village, got a fireplace, maybe 2 teepees. Okay, but it cannot support New York City. Whereas once we have these other kind of mediums of exchange, things like salt or things like cacao beans or seashells or whatever it is that people used, we're not going to do a big city, but we can support, a small village. Okay, maybe some of these little Pueblo towns or something. Okay, now as this evolved and we start using gold coins, well now, in that time in history, people were colonizing other lands. We had people building these giant ships, and they had these larger cities, okay, where they now have a form of exchange that allows them to participate and cooperate with one another at an even grander scale. And so now we have these large cities with boats, and we can colonize other lands, sort of like, the British Empire went and colonized Australia and the United States before they lost the United States colony and all that stuff, right? And it's because they had these tools or these currencies that allowed them to cooperate with one another in order to build the cities, in order to build the ships, and that sort of thing. Okay, but in time, the gold coins became cumbersome, right? They're heavy. If you have a lot of them and you're walking around and you could hear them clinking, somebody might jump you and take them. So in time, we started carrying around paper certificates. So we would leave all of the gold in a vault, and we would carry around a certificate that says, if you go to this, vault and give them the certificate, they'll give you back a gold coin. Okay, and it's more convenient. You carry around a bunch in a wallet, whatever. It's easier for exchange. Okay, and as we did this, now we have sort of our modern economy, right? We have large buildings, we have airplanes. Okay, we have all these systems that now that we are able to support. Because remember, if we went back to barter, like how are you going to barter for a plane ticket? How are you going to barter for, your groceries every day, right? This level of currency cannot support this infrastructure. And so the more we develop this, the more we can support this infrastructure, or the more we can support our collective wealth. Because if you are the middle of the pack person, let's say in New York City, you have thousands of options for food. Okay, let's say. If you're in a hotel, you could have room service. You could have Uber Eats delivered to your room. You could walk down to the restaurant. You could go to thousands of different restaurants. So you go to the supermarket where you have thousands of different varieties of foods to choose from. You have so many different options. You could hop on a plane and go to a different city because you like that restaurant better, right? So you have so many different options if you are in a society here, more so than the king of one of these civilizations would have. Okay, they don't have many options for food because there's not as many people cooperating with one another because their currency isn't good. So the better currency we have, and of course there's other factors like, the court systems and property rights and all this stuff that contribute to this, but currency is one of these things. The better currency we have, the more infrastructure we can support. Okay, and so nowadays, of course, we pretty much, in the Western world at least, all have debit cards and credit cards, and so now we have even more infrastructure. So I'm going to try and draw the tallest building in the world in Dubai. Let's see here. Something like that, right? So we have this huge infrastructure that we are now building, now that we have this digital forms of payment. But there are limits to this even, right? We have to at least have a central bank, and the whole world doesn't want to be run by one central bank. And so we have these countries, and we have our own unique currencies. We don't have a global currency, and so it's harder to do global commerce. But remember, the more people that we have participating in commerce, the more wealth we generate. And so if we could have a global currency, which cryptocurrencies look to be, they already are a global currency, but they're not globally accepted yet. But as we have a global currency, now we have more and more people participating in exchange to grow more and more collective wealth. So this is the legacy that cryptocurrencies allow us to do. And since there is no central authority on cryptocurrencies, okay, here we have a central bank. There's not one person, but let's say a small group of people in charge of the currency. With cryptocurrencies, that's not the case. There is no central point of authority. And so there's no trusting in somebody. And so that way it can scale to the whole globe, right? It can be a safe global currency. And if we have a global currency and we have easier and easier exchange globally, it will be a very wonderful thing. Okay, we'll benefit and grow society to an even larger level. So that is the reason why cryptocurrencies are of benefit. Okay, so we zoomed out, we took the big picture, instead of looking at all the small features, talking about stories about people making money and losing money at the price, we have zoomed out and we have said, look, if we can improve the currency, we can support more global wealth. We can lift people out of poverty, because the people in Africa, I said this earlier, people say, oh, they're poor because, we're stealing and pillaging from them. That cannot be further from the truth. The reason they're poor is because they can't trade. They don't have an infrastructure for trade. There are people, let's say, that grow up in the middle of a poor part of Africa. They may not even have a government ID. They can't open a bank account. They don't even have enough money to open a bank account. And so they cannot participate in commerce, at least in digital commerce, right? So they're stuck back here, right? And so it's not that we're taking from them. We are observing that they are not able to participate in commerce because they don't have the infrastructure for it. But if you've been to Africa, and I visited just, I guess, 3 countries, but one time, okay, I was in Africa one time. It's the same trip. And what I noticed is that they all have not all, but a lot of people have cell phones, okay? They've leapfrogged us. Here in the United States, we have telephone lines everywhere, and nobody even uses their phone line. We all have cell phones now, but there they just have cell phones. They've leapfrogged in technology. They have smartphones, and they're able to talk and do all this. Well, that's all that they need in order to participate within, cryptocurrencies economy. They just need to press a button, open an account on an app, and now they can start participating in digital commerce. Even though a lot of them, and it sounds crazy, are not able to get a bank account. Okay, and the more Apple and Google and all these people create new phones and operating systems, the cheaper it drives down the price of cell phones, the more cell phones we can give around, and the more people we could have cooperating within this global commerce, and the more that we can lift these people out of poverty, because now they have the infrastructure to support larger scale, cities and wealth. So that is why cryptocurrencies are important. So I hope I did a good job of communicating this, and go ahead and leave some comments. I cannot promise to answer them all. In my other videos, I kind of said I'll answer them, and I was super overwhelmed by it. So I'm not going to answer all of them, but I will take a look at them and that kind of stuff, okay? So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.